what's happening here that's not happening anyplace else?
I mean, the competitive level starts at 4 years old.
Classic rivalry.
Hall of Fame type coaches, great personalities.
All three schools, though, they changed the game of college football.
Florida State Seminole. Miami Hurricanes.
Florida Gators.
You want to dominate your opponents and you want to get stoned, make sure that you roll up.
Welcome to the Rollup Network 2022 Gator Talk preview show. Shout out to the sponsors, Gator Collective. Take your Gator fandom to a new level. Visit the Gator Collective. They've launched a new exclusive message board that can be added to any membership at only $5 per month, with exclusive interviews with coaches and players and the ability to interact with those players and other Gator fans. Visit GatorCollective.com, sign up, get more information. Fellas, I'm kicking it with some Gator legends, some Gator writers. We're gonna take it from pretty much top to the bottom, from left to right. We have Bob Redman from Gator Collective. We have Graham Hall from 247 Sports. Dan Thompson from Stadium Miguel. Andy Staples from The Athletic and the Andy Staples Show. And my guy Nick Delatorre from On 3 Sports and the Stadium Miguel. Almost said the Gator Collective.
And your podcast.
Yeah.
And your own podcast.
My employee, Nick Delatorre.
Partner.
All right, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We kicking it, man. It's 2022 season. We bring this season on with a new coach. Last year was rough, 6-7. A lot of lows for the Gator Nation last year. But we cracked this year after we're coming into this year after a solid spring, a lot of good buzz, a lot of good smoke around the quarterback position, new coach, feeling good around here. I want to start it off with Andy Staples and ask you, what are you hearing? I know you're close with the program, former Gator player, and you got some relationships over there. What are you hearing around the program, vibes-wise?
I think people are excited about Richardson. I talked to him at SEC Media Days, and I thought it was really interesting that he's caught up with Levi Lewis. Like, Levi Lewis was Billy Napier's quarterback at Louisiana Lafayette, and Richardson, they got his number, hit him up, asking him things about running the offense, and was talking to Emory Hunt, who he's a guy who covers the draft, but he's a Raging Cajun. He's very tied into that program and believes deeply in Billy Napier, and is sad that he's gone. But basically, he was calling Anthony a supercharged Levi Lewis. And, that's the thing about this. Everybody kind of has their ideas about where Florida's record's going to be and where they're going to fall based on the roster. I still think when you have a special quarterback, it changes the math. And we don't know exactly what Richardson is yet because we haven't really gotten a chance to see him as the starter. The Georgia game last year is a weird situation, and he was in and out of health last year. So I want to see him where he's had a full off season to figure it out and what he looks like against Utah, because there are not guys in the country that have that level of skill set, that are that big, that fast, with that big of an arm. Like, the reason Will Levis is getting all this first round buzz is he's a big guy who is a fast runner with a big arm.
Right.
But Anthony is bigger, faster, and may have a bigger arm. So
just doesn't have as good as a publicist as Will Levis.
Well, I think Will's girlfriend may be helping out too with the TikToks and the eating the banana and the mayo and the coffee situation. I do think he's getting some advising on that end that tends to help him blow up a little bit, go viral. But no, I want to see Richardson against what we know is going to be a solid defense. And listen, if he is what his tools say he can be, then you got to change your expectations for this team. You have to revise them up. But we got to see it. And that's it. This is the most intrigued I've been in a Florida quarterback in a long, probably since Will Grier. Mm-hmm. And Anthony has better tools than Will Grier, but Will did get it done on the field.
You got me excited, man. Why do you think, like outside of the it's just not a whole lot of fanfare? We know the skill set of Anthony Richardson. I've just been I like how quiet he's coming in this season. I like how quiet the Gators are coming in, and it's not a whole lot of high expectations. I love all of that. But you look at his skill set, and I don't like to compare him to Cam Newton, but there's a lot of good comparisons there. He's got verified speed this offseason, 4.4. We know everything he can do physically. We've seen him jump over people last year, and we got glimpses of that arm and how he could drop some of the throws he can make sometimes. Why do you think the lack of, some draft boards got him high, but the lack of like Heisman, the lack of even in the SEC when they rank these guys, why do you think that's the case?
Because he hasn't been a full-time starter yet. It's the same thing. Like even Spencer Rattler, who we were talking about as the presumptive Heisman favorite this time last year, he's not getting that because he got benched at Oklahoma and now he's at South Carolina. So it's all of it is what did you do in the most immediate thing we can remember. And for Anthony, he was hurt at the end of last season. The one start he got, it didn't go well, but that was also against a historically good defense, and it was a pretty weird situation. And so I am certainly willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because I don't think he was put in a good situation last year. I think it was Dan at a certain point was like, fine, stop yelling at me, I'll start him. and there it was.
Right. Nick,
not only that, Dan being the smartest person in any room that he's ever been in was
Which
like,
Dan?
okay, I'll
Mullen?
Yes.
Oh.
No, but yes. Dan was like, all right, I'll show you guys. I'll pick possibly the greatest assembled defense in the history of college football, and we'll send him in there just to show you that I was right and he wasn't right. It's like, Dan, Joe Montana wouldn't have done well against that Georgia team last year. Like you've proved nothing except that your stubbornness. I think the people like in Gainesville, like Andy's in Gainesville, Bob, Graham, like the ones that we're seeing Anthony a lot, we understand like what the ceiling is and that there might not be a ceiling. But like the fact of the matter is he still has like 33 completions and he's played 200
you got to show it in games, right? And you got to show you can stay healthy. Those are all things that matter. You can have all the potential in the world. And there's a good example of that right now in the SEC. So Hendon Hooker is Tennessee's starting quarterback. But if you went to a Tennessee practice, every one of you, if you went to a Tennessee practice, you would think Joe Milton is the best quarterback you have ever seen in your life. Like when he throws the ball, angels sing. But when he throws the ball in games, they go over people's heads, and Hendon Hooker doesn't. So that's why Hendon Hooker's a starter. So that's the thing. People need to see it with Anthony, and he's going to get his chance.
He's going to get his chance, and I think he could be the answer to what if Cam Newton never stole a laptop? Like that's the kind of talent that
his name was on it, Nick.
Listen, I'm neither here nor there. I'm not, I'm not an investigator and I'm not a lawyer. I'm just reading articles online.
You don't throw the laptops that you own out the window?
No. Every once in a while, maybe. I think the potential is there. I want to see him develop as a passer. I mean, you watched him run 22 miles an hour against USF. You know he can run. He's going to be asked to run a lot. I just want to see him throw. And I think in the spring, I continue to see his miss be high, and you can't miss high. You miss high, and you start throwing interceptions.
Yeah, you miss high, and the free safety takes it back 25 yards. So I was looking at Louisiana Lafayette stats from last year. They were 58.5% run team.
Right.
They're going to be 60-40.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Florida's 60-40.
Yeah, no doubt. And if with him being able to run the ball like the kid at Louisiana last year, I mean, I think certainly that number could be higher than that, because if he stays healthy, that's a huge deal for that part of the game. But I think the bigger picture here is, and I'm sure it's been talked about too much, but this team, for all intents and purposes, it could be goes as Anthony Richardson goes.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. Let's jump into some camp talk while we're talking Anthony Richardson. I think that one of the biggest questions for him is the wide receiver, his targets. The tight end room is thin. The only proven guy probably coming back is Zipper to some degree. And then you have Justin Shorter and Xavier Henderson and some other guys at wide receiver that's shown flashes. But from the rumors and what we've been hearing since spring football is guys that can't separate. We brought Ricky Pearsall in. I want to start with Bob Redmond. We can start with this one. What are you hearing wide receiver wise? Are AR gelling with those guys, or what's the chemistry like?
Yeah, I think the biggest story for me there is Ricky Pearsall, and I think he's got to stay healthy. I mean, he's already been injured twice at the start of practice, so at fall of practice, and I think that the reason for Pearsall is he's just a different guy. He's a guy that in the short field can make plays, and they just don't have that on their roster right now, other than him, at least that we know about. So to me, they need that, I hate to put him in these words, but Kadarius Toney type player that can get the ball 4 or 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and make a play to get a first down. And he's that guy right now. He's got to stay healthy until they can find somebody else.
Is Ty Bowman one of those guys? Like when he goes, I know Trent Whitmore is also another guy in the slot that shows him flashes. Is Ty Bowman one of those young guys that came in as a transfer? Is he making any flashes?
He is. He is. He's another quick guy like that, and he's playing in the slot. And I think that Pearsall has a whole bunch of experience that he brings with him, and that's a bigger deal, especially a guy that just got here and is trying to jump in with a team full of. And honestly, here's the thing I think about the receiver group. I think there is talent there. I'm not saying there's not talent. I just think they need that guy that can get the ball in the short field and make a play. And I don't think other than those two guys, you could go down that roster and figure that who that would be. I mean, even Dejon Reynolds plays in the slot, but he's more of a deep threat than he is that shallow guy to do something. So I think they just missed that. And those type of players complement the bigger, faster guys on the outside that I think they can actually make some room for those guys on the outside as well with it taking some underneath coverage away.
No doubt. Nick, you've been a big critic of the wide receiver room and watching it. What do you think about that? And then also I will go with Graham Hall after that. Offensive opinions, passing game, ratio, running pass. What do you think?
I think Florida is going to run the ball, kind of like Andy said, 60-40. It's going to be a team that tries to control the clock, impose its will.
Real quick. What does this look like, run to pass? Like, is this Army or is this like Auburn?
Gus
is this
Malzahn,
Arkansas?
Nick
Gus
Marshall.
Malzahn? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You don't, like Bob said, it's not that Florida doesn't have talent. Like, you've got 4-star guys that were 5 stars. That's fine. I said right when Billy took over, I think, or maybe during spring, that it's the worst wide receiver group I'd seen at Florida. And the coaching staff agreed because they went out and they got two new guys.
That's what that means.
And I think Ricky Pearsall is, in my opinion, the only guy that is like what Bob was talking about, that can get the ball in space, make somebody move, somebody that can play in a phone booth. Everyone else, Justin Shorter, Dejon Reynolds, Xavier Henderson, fast guys, but long stride, speedster. They're not guys that are going to make you miss in space. And I think when Ricky Pearsall went down, you probably saw that affect how the scrimmage went Saturday and how the offense did Saturday, with the defense clearly winning that day. So to me, you need to get him back. I don't think Ty Bowman is on that same level as Ricky Pearsall. And I didn't expect to be saying this about Ricky when he first came to Florida. So
Me either.
To me, I think the offensive strength is that you have a 6'5", 250-pound truck at quarterback and 3 really talented running backs and an offensive line that's filled with experience. So why would you try to throw the ball? That'd be like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter getting in the ring with Mike Tyson and being like, I'm going to stand with you just to show that I can, instead of taking you down and winning where I can. So I think Florida's going to run the ball because that's what they're going to do most successfully.
Here's the thing, though. If you can run the ball successfully with this kind of offense, you can open up some stuff in the passing game. I mean, I mentioned when Nick Marshall was Auburn's quarterback for a reason. Like, Nick Marshall was a cornerback playing quarterback. He wasn't a great thrower of the football. But when the receivers are wide open because everyone's terrified of what you might do on the ground, whether it was Marshall or Trey Mason, you don't have to be that great. And Florida does have a guy who has a good arm. So I do think if they can be marginally successful in the run game, it does make the passing game work.
And they have the bulk of their talent are guys that can beat you up top. So at some point, there's going to be a game, probably against USF, where I look stupid and there's 3 40-yard touchdown passes, and everyone says, Nick, you were wrong. But they're going to use the play action game. So you're running to set up the pass.
Yeah, unfortunately, Utah won't be playing a backup receiver at corner like they had to in the Rose Bowl because they had so many injuries.
I pose this question. What are the chances that we just got elite DB play and they just can't get out of the shackles of our elite DB play?
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it.
All right, man, I got to ask the questions. I'm just here to ask the questions, Nick. What do you think?
That's more likely than the humidity.
I think they're improved. I think they're going to be really improved, honestly, in the backfield. And I think it has to do more with communication than anything, from my perspective. I think Corey Raymond's going to do a better job than we've seen at that position in particular. But I think the communication on the back end, it has been a lot. And I also think, just talking to people, that in the scrimmage on Saturday, the defense is kind of knows the offense now, and the offense, they just they're kind of showing up where the ball's supposed to be right now. Anyway, the defense is doing that because they know the offense. But I tend to think that the defense, I think there's talent in the secondary, and I think it's finally going to be coached up a lot better than it has been. And I think there's just going to be a lot less confusion on defense in general to make those things happen. So yeah, I tend to believe, I'm not saying they're elite by any stretch, but I do believe they're going to be much better.
The use of 5 defensive backs, I just think in general, I mean, that's something that we should think about. Just having an extra defensive back on the field, I think is going to be huge for this team, no matter what. We've heard some guys, Kamar Wilcoxon, Jalen Kimber as well has been a ball hawk. Avery Helmus had a really strong camp. The one question I have about the secondary right now is the absence of those top 2 guys. I think a lot of people were hoping that Jaden Hill would be back. He was in line to start last year opposite Kyer Elam before that torn ACL. He's not been able to go throughout fall camp at all. I don't know if he's able to play come week 1 or come week 4. And then you got Jason Marshall Jr., who can't practice right now. They're kind of being cautious with him. If either of those guys are missing, or both of those guys miss the Utah game, I absolutely think the ceiling is lowered quite a bit. But the scheme should absolutely allow Florida to have better defensive back play this season. I think that's kind of a given in a sense, in my mind.
And Devin Moore is making a lot of hype into this camp. I mean, he's a young boy that's coming in, similar to the hype that Janoris Jenkins got as true freshman, Joe Hayden, Vernon Hargraves. Do we think he's the next great one at corner? And do we probably see him week 1 as a starter?
Coaches don't usually jump in with true freshmen as starters. So that's why you had those guys as, Janoris, I think, was the first one. Or was it? No, I guess it was Joe. Joe was the first freshman to start in the modern era, I guess. I think it was. So it just doesn't happen very often. Trust me, I think everything I've heard, Devin has probably had the best fall of any of the corners. So I know he's going to play a ton, whether he actually rolls out there as a starter on the first snap with all the lights and everything. I think that coaches are just not into doing that a lot. So, but going back, I don't think at this point Jaden Hill's going to start game 1. I don't see he missed the entire spring, hasn't practiced this fall. I just don't see it where he's going to be out there. So, I mean, you just got to count him out for now, and come along. But I think there are other guys that are playing, and we don't know about Jason Marshall, like you said, either. So that is an issue right now because I'm more of Jason Marshall missing time, in my opinion, because I just don't think Hill at this point will be ready to start on game one.
Who, Jason Marshall, you saying? Won't be ready to start?
Hill.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
because I mean, he hasn't been there
Yeah, I agree.
yet in this defense.
I mean, he got injured a year ago, so he hasn't really done anything meaningful in a year.
He will not be ready by game one for sure. I mean,
there's something additional there.
That's fine, but my point is he hasn't practiced either spring or fall.
You can't count him in whatsoever.
Right.
If Devin Moore is able to see the field come week one, first month of the season, in my mind, I think that as much of a testament it is to his potential talent level, I would kind of see it as an indictment of the entire unit because you have a guy in Avery Helm who started more than half of the season last year. You got Jalen Kimber, former 4-star from Georgia, who has been a ball hawk. You saw it in the spring game. He's had a strong camp as well. He's stayed healthy. If a true freshman starts over him, as enticing and as encouraging as I think that is, I think it is kind of also an indictment of the rest of the unit right now in my mind.
No
Guys,
doubt.
you know Alabama and LSU do this pretty much
all the time. Yeah,
like there's some dudes, and they come in and they play.
They're ready, right?
And that is what Florida is trying to get to. They're trying to get to the point where there's a few freshmen in every class that are completely undeniable, and the fact that this is not a normal thing anymore is shocking to me. Like, it feels weird. We were talking about, Bob was mentioning Joe Hayden. Now, Joe Hayden struggled that first year. And for as great as he is, he struggled that first year. But, I mean, you knew when you saw him on that practice field, this is going to be the best DB on this team. And it probably is going to take half a season to make it happen.
Yeah.
And they've got to get into that recruiting mindset. And I think that's what they're trying to do. You saw it over the weekend. They beat Alabama head to head for a player. That doesn't, that's been a long time since that was a regular occurrence. And I think this conversation, if Billy Napier is doing what he's supposed to be doing, this conversation like 2 years from now is they'll be like 3 or 4 freshmen. They're like, they got to play.
Right.
They're the best.
I mean, we're seeing it across the defense. Shamar James is another guy that's getting 1 reps at linebacker. And you recruit those top end guys. You're beating Bama for those type of guys. When they get on campus, they ready to play right away, especially if you got guys in front of them that are not traditional linebackers. So, I'm right with you with that. What are we hearing on Shamar James at linebacker?
I got to jump in here real quick. That's
go
why
ahead.
kind of,
what do you think?
As good of a reception, I think that Devin Moore impression that he's made, I've heard better things so far about Shamar James. You factor in Amari Burney dealt with an injury. I mean, he's been fantastic in coverage. Andy, you said this, a guy who just comes in and knows what they're doing like that has been Shamar James by all accounts. If I had to put my money where my mouth is right now, I would say that he's more likely to start in the first month of the season than Devin Moore, just from what I've been hearing. Now, if both of those guys are out there, then I think that you hit a home run on the recruiting trail, despite not really having much time being here to get those guys.
I agree. I mean, I've heard the same stuff about Shamar, no doubt about it. A guy that almost every practice that I've heard something about, he's done something to, to really play well and show up well at the practice. So I think certainly I think he's a guy that will play and play a lot. And again, it just goes back to me. I understand what Andy said about, this is what they do. And Urban was the same way, playing the true freshman like he did with Joe Hayden and Janoris.
It's almost like all the guys who win national championships do it the same way.
You're right. You're right. And that's because they recruit at that level. I mean, we're talking about those kind of guys. And Billy certainly is starting to show his recruiting, prowess. But it's kind of like we say with Anthony, is like, you got to show me, right? You got to show me what that you're going to do it. And we just haven't seen that Billy. I think he comes off as such a reserved guy, and you can't really say that about those other guys, right? I mean, you can't say that about those other guys. He comes off so reserved, and that makes me think that he won't. At least I'm just talking about game one. I mean, can you imagine throwing Devin Moore in the first play out there against a top 7 team in the lights? You know, that's a big deal. But again, you go back to the talent. And if he's showing up that big, I mean, that it also sends a message to the team when you do that. To start a Shamar James or a Devin Moore, if this guy's showing up every day at practice and he's doing his homework and he's getting the stuff down and he's playing like that on the field, he's got to start. I agree with that. But we don't know. I honestly don't know if that's what Billy Napier can do and will do. We'll find out, I guess.
Right.
Dan. The other thing
go ahead,
is this is year 1/year 0. He can Billy Napier ain't getting fired after this season. Right. So if he wants to throw some guys into the fire,
never say never. There could be some fake death threats.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel stupid about that. I think
Willie Taggart almost did it.
I mean, Nick said never at the beginning of last season, and then it all played out.
I was at that Texas Notre Dame season opener a few years ago, and one of my friends had just gotten a job on the Texas beat, and Texas beats Notre Dame. Like, well, congratulations, you're not going to have to cover a coaching search this year. Well, he did. So yeah, I mean, you never know. But that said, this coaching staff has a lot more license to try some stuff right now than they will in a year or two when expectations are higher.
Well, and I think they also have the opportunity this year compared to some other years, right? I mean, there is a lot of question marks at linebacker, question marks at defensive back. I mean, even though there's some players that have been there for, a longer period of time, there's not a ton of game snaps for them under their belt, right? So this could be a really good opportunity for a guy like Devin Moore or a guy like Shamar James or whoever it might be, for a freshman to be able to come in because, Florida struggled a lot last year, right? And there's not a ton of returning talent that has done a whole heck of a lot. And you might have a player that's a little bit more athletic.
There is a recruiting aspect to this too, where if you went head to head with Bama on a dude like Shamar James and you got him, if you play him right away, the next guy you go head to head with, you say, look, you got a chance to play, because you know what Saban's going to say to him. Saban has the same sales pitch to everybody. We will give you an opportunity to win a job. That's it. But if you see that you can step in and play and they're willing to play you, maybe that's going to sway a guy who thinks, okay, I got a little easier chance of getting on the field early here.
Mm-hmm.
What does this mean in your opinion? Welcome to the show, Zach Aberverdi from On 3. What do you think this means for the backup linebackers, guys like Derek Wingo, who I'm hearing is having a decent camp, and also DeJuan Black? Some of the fans going to want to know about him as well. He's a fan favorite. What do you think that with Shamar James seemingly moving up the depth chart pretty fast? What does it mean for those guys?
It's put up or shut up. I mean, obviously you got a guy that comes in and creates competition like that. And I don't know if anybody's mentioned it, but I thought one of the most interesting things was the way that they've had him repping in fall camp. Not just that the fact that he's behind Ventrell Miller and Amari Burney, but that was done for a reason. Amari said that they wanted to basically have him shadowing those two guys and watching everything they do before he takes his rep. To me, that says that they want that kid to be ready to play. So I think his presence in the room and how involved he's been in the rotation has definitely probably made guys like Derek Wingo, Scooby Williams, and DeJuan have to really step up their game, because there's going to be a lot of competition to get on the field. You already know that they're going to have Ventrell and Amari out there the majority of the time anyway. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, and also to see how they use those guys in some of those creeper blitzes. And if maybe that may be a way for some of those guys to get on the field, in some packages and stuff like that. So I think Tony's going to do some exotic things with those guys.
Right. Let's keep it defense.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Go ahead.
I've heard that Shamar offers a little bit of skill set to where we could see some 3 linebacker sets out there and 3 guys like that out on the field, which I don't think we're going to see a lot of, but I think he's a guy that brings a little bit of a different animal to the defense, and they can do that kind of thing.
No doubt, I like that. I like the way Patrick Toney's. We'll probably get into that a little bit more later. I like the way I just watched his defense a lot this offseason. I'm more excited about that than I am Anthony Richardson. After seeing terrible defense last year, seeing how his scheme is they run off a lot of analytics. I think it's progressive with how he attacked things. So I'm excited to see that defense. But let's keep it defensive tackle. My man Gervon Dexter did not make top 100 ESPN. We talked about this a little bit pre-show. I want to get Andy Staples' take on that real quick. Get that to the people. What's your take? You didn't make it.
You sent the outline out, and it was interesting because I saw that and I was like, okay, let's look at some cut-ups from last season. How does he do over whole games, and what is it that they're not seeing? And I also looked at what our draft guy at The Athletic, Dane Brugler, is awesome. Like his big boards are usually pretty accurate. He does a very good job scouting and kind of mirroring what NFL scouts are seeing. He's got Dexter as his number 4 interior defensive lineman for the 2023 draft. And he's got a play against Alabama, which is a perfect stack and shed play. Dexter shoots his hands, gets the guard, back on his heels, and then sheds him and makes a tackle. It's a perfect play. Exactly what your coach to do. And I looked at the LSU game and the Tennessee game, and you see a lot of that, especially early in those games where he has unbelievable punch explosiveness right off the ball early in those games. And you see that offensive lineman just snap backward. And that's what those NFL scouts are seeing that's making them excited. But what is happening sometimes is it looks like as games go on, he's either getting tired or just kind of disappearing for a little while. And you don't see as much of those flash plays as the game goes on. And there were some plays where, it looks like, because a lot of times the offensive linemen don't have to dominate you. The play is designed as an offensive lineman where you can kind of take the defensive player where he wants to go, and the defensive guy thinks he's winning, and all of a sudden, oh crap, there's the guy with the ball going by me. And it seemed like there was a lot of that in the LSU game where the offensive lineman appears to be letting him win. And as a D lineman, especially an interior D lineman, if it feels like the guy's letting you win, you got to fight through something to go find, because that means you're going the way he wants you to go. So
it's a setup.
That's a mental thing. That's film. That's everything. But it's also, are you in shape? Are you being, getting a chance to be fresh? I'm not sure with their depth if he was, because they weren't like Georgia where they're rolling in fresh guys every 4 snaps. So he has the potential to be a very good player. And I would say, just based on his traits, he's going to be a top 100 player in the draft because those guys don't grow on trees. But if he plays for whole games the way he plays at the beginning of some of these games, then you're talking about first-round talent.
Yeah, I think he's still probably a year, this year of proving, right? I mean, I think that we know Gervon Dexter, highly ranked guy out of high school, played a little bit as a freshman, gets an interception in game 1, has a decent year last year playing in some mop-up duty and a little bit more than that. But, ultimately for most, he never really – I think he had 2.5 sacks on the year. So he never really made a huge impact on the stat sheet. So when you look at, the top 100 players in the country, I think that we see that because he's physically gifted. He, projects super well to the NFL. But I think for the most part, his impact has still not yet been seen at the level that maybe fans, expected for a, highly ranked 4-star, 5-star kid.
Interior guys aren't going to put up huge numbers. And I think Jordan Davis was an outlier last year where he did get a lot of attention from us in spite of being an interior guy who in that defense, his job's not to put up huge numbers. His job is to clog the middle and let the linebackers make some plays.
But even folks that watched a lot of film could probably say Gervon Dexter, outside of the stat sheet, wasn't making a ton of big impact plays, right? He wasn't stuffing the line. I mean, there's still, certainly an opportunity for, sophomore year, right? So he still has 2 theoretical more seasons, just right now that he can make an impact. So, I think it took him a little while to really get started. And, I think Andy, hit the nail on the head. There's some great plays, and there's some times that he disappears. And, this is his opportunity to elevate and level up.
Yeah, guys that big don't move that well. So I think
he definitely needs to get better. But the guy had 51 tackles last year. The only defensive tackle that Florida has had in the last 13 years that's had more than that is Jonathan Bullard. Now, granted, there haven't been that many D tackles, but you're talking about Floyd, you're talking about Easley, all those guys. The only one that's had more than Gervon Dexter as a true sophomore last year with 51 was Jonathan Bullard in the last 13 years. That says something. As you said, they're not there to make the big plays, honestly. They're there most of the time to clog up the middle. If they're making 4 tackles a game, which is what he did, he's he's doing the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that some of those numbers are maybe a product of how bad that defense was last year. The plays that they had to make outside of, a traditional defensive tackle spot. So, I'm very high on Gervon Dexter. I think that he's going to have a great career, but I'm not at all surprised that he's still not getting the accolades that maybe some fans expect.
He's got the skill set to be dominant. That's the thing. When you see a guy who can move like he can, and again, it's really hard to snap a 330-pound guy up like that, to make him just straighten up immediately. So he can do that. And so I think it's a lot like Anthony Richardson, the same conversation we were having. You have all these traits, the potential's there, the ceiling's there. If you can get to it, it changes the math.
Right, takes our ceiling a little bit higher if those guys hit their potential. What do you have, my man Graham Hall? You was itching to say something, bro.
Yeah, I guess the reason when Andy and I were talking before the show started about why I was kind of surprised where he was at in the top 100 was because I was more coming at it from his potential this season. And in my mind, having seen him in practice, we haven't really seen it mentioned too much, but he does look in better shape. He looks stronger and faster in my mind. And when you combine that with his work ethic, the defensive changes, I do kind of see at the end of the season that ranking being a little bit low in my mind, especially because we've seen how the rest of the defensive linemen, some guys haven't really taken the leap that many were looking for from a physical standpoint. So when you see a guy like Gervon Dexter come in and do that when he already has kind of established himself, maybe still has a lot to do, but has established himself, I just kind of reinforces in my mind that this is a professional, a second, third round draft guy at worst in my mind. And so that's why it seemed a little bit low to me. But to your point about the film from last year, I think that a lot of guys have been adamant that they gave up on plays last year, weren't in the best shape that they could have been in throughout last year. And so I understand those concerns, but some of them
and that may be all it is. It may be already fixed. And that's the thing that you should be excited about with a guy like that. Because again, they don't grow on trees. And
most importantly, he had a kid. He got a family to feed. He just seems more serious and more professional than he did. Just taking it a little bit more serious since the birth of his child, in my opinion. Nick, you were around the defensive lineman this week, getting a lot of footage. What is your take on the defensive line room? Sean Spencer coaching that bunch. That's a lot of concern at defensive tackle.
Yeah, I think Florida's really deep on the edges. I think you've got 3, 4 guys, 5 guys that can play that jack linebacker role. One of the guys we were just talking about, seeing guys take plays off. One I need to see play and take less plays off is Brenton Cox. And he even admitted last year, is like, hey, my foot hurt. I definitely took some plays off. I think he learned or knows that my tape is my resume. And I can't take plays off because I'm putting that on film for prospective employers to see, and they're not going to pay for that. Behind him, you've got guys. I think at defensive end, I'm really high on Princey Umalalen. Did I get that, Zach? No, I'll never get it. He's just Princey.
Uman
Milan. I think he's really good. I think at that defensive end, Justice Boone's the guy that's put together a great spring and a great fall. Tyreek Sapp is a guy who I'm really impressive if we're talking about guys who have had kids. He had a kid over the summer, and that kind of changes your whole perspective. Like you said, Corey, Florida's really deep on the edges. Can they stop a run inside the tackles? And I don't know. I look at Desmond Watson at practice, and he has as many reps. He has as many reps with the water bottle as he does with the sled. Like, he's not in shape. I don't know how many snaps you can get from him in a game. Jalen Lee looks good. Chris McClellan's a freshman. How many snaps can you get a freshman inside? Florida just doesn't have enough depth inside. And I think, if you look at what they couldn't do last year, they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't tackle. Can you tackle this year? And can you stop the run between the tackles? I don't know that they have those guys inside.
Has anybody seen Gravon play? There's been some speak about him playing strong side defensive end. Have we seen that?
I wrote about that in the practice on, what was that, Tuesday? Because, I don't know, as to Nick's point, they have a lot of talent on the edge, be it at end or at the jack position. So there's plenty of depth at outside linebacker. And then you're talking about Uman Milan, Boone, and Sapp pretty much in that rotation. They split up the group the other day, and all the ends went with one side, and the rest of the defensive line was basically all tackles, and Javon was with that group. I'm sure he is playing some end, but I find it hard to see how they don't put him in the interior.
There's no need with what your defensive line room looks like. There's no need to put him at end. You need help inside.
Right.
I think one of the issues for Javon.
That's one thing I'm fascinated to see is, does he play interior? Does he play in any end at all? Does somebody else emerge at defensive tackle that allows him to do both? Because to me, we honestly don't know that, because we haven't really seen enough of offensive line versus defensive line in practice.
Go ahead, Bob.
I think back to Javon and how good he's going to be this year. One of the question marks is who's going to play next to him interior. I don't like you guys are saying, I don't see him playing outside. They just don't have enough inside to do that unless it's a really, I mean, I can't imagine why it would be like that at all. There's no reason for it. So, but to me, for his success, it's got to be who's lining up next to him. You got to have your Dominique Easley lining up to your Sharif Floyd to be really, that dominant. And right now, it's just a question. We just don't know who it is. I think McClellan is going to be really good. We go back to these freshmen again. I think he's going to be really good. But a true freshman interior lineman is a tough call for anybody. It just is. So we'll see. I mean, I don't that is going to hurt Javon, I think, unless somebody out of somewhere steps up and does it.
And something Chris Rump, shout out to the Rump Shaker, said that always sticks out to me. Defensive linemen he learned at Alabama have a gas tank, and however full that gas tank is at the end of the game, there's no refilling it. So once they hit empty, there's no getting them back. Like, they're done for the day. And how many plays can Javon play? And what do you have behind him? Can you ask, like, hey, dog, we need you to play 60 plays Saturday. You need to play 65 defensive snaps Saturday because there's no one behind you. Can you do that?
Yeah, no doubt. I want to give a shout out real quick before we get moving any further to one of our sponsors, man. Alan Horn, who's a friend of the show, friend of Gator Nation, former pitcher, State Farm. They've been holding us down a little bit at the Rollup Network and also on Stadium Miguel. Be sure to give him a call at 706-692-2888. Home, auto, or life insurance. Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. And it's on the ticker down there if you need that number again. Again, that's Alan Horn, State Farm. Phone number is 706-692-2888. All right, fellas. I do have a question from one of the guys in the chat, super chat. Shout out to Chris. He asked if, not that question, the first question. I'm going to go offense. He asked if it was Anthony Richardson was to go down, is the year just pretty much a wash, or can we salvage this thing with a run game and the backup quarterback situation, which we also need to speak on?
You'll be back at that farmer's market, Silk.
Yeah.
If AR goes down, you got some beautiful Saturdays at the farmer's market, my guy.
I only go to the farmer's market if the coach quit. Dan Mullen quit, so I had to quit too, man. I couldn't watch my Gators go out and put out that type of effort, bro. I had to go to the farmers market.
I don't know if it's a complete wash. I don't know, how successful they'll be. You might start to see a lot more freshmen, get out there, and you might start to see some changes across the board. And maybe it's a wash for this year, but it's maybe not a wash for the years after. I think a lot of it obviously depends a ton on Anthony Richardson. I just don't know if there's a ton of talent behind him. I do think that there's a lot of talent at running back. I think that there's a great offensive line. So I do think that Florida's gonna be able to move the ball, without just Anthony Richardson. I don't think that the entire season hinges solely on him being able to do what he did against USF every game next season. I don't even know if he needs to be, a perfect quarterback for Florida to be successful next year. But, his health is surely an indicator of what bowl game Florida might go to.
Yeah.
How late into December?
If they lose Richardson, they're in a lot of trouble. I'll just say that.
Right.
I mean,
yeah,
the
I
situation
agree with that.
at quarterback is not great right now. In today's practice specifically, there were only 2 scholarship quarterbacks participating. Jack Miller is currently out. Jalen Kitna can't. He's dealing with a lower body injury. He can't participate right now either. So if Richardson goes down right now, in my mind, you're talking about Max Brown.
So it's what, him and Max Brown? Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. So if I would be surprised if they weren't very cautious with Richardson until the Utah game, just knowing where that situation's at and the health of some other guys and knowing that there's a significant drop-off offensively if he were to go down.
Usually Nick brings us that type of energy. Appreciate that, Graham.
Sorry, we got a bunch of truth seekers on the panel here. So
no, that just got dark. I don't mind the truth, but the energy behind it was just a little low.
You ask dark questions, you're gonna get dark answers.
No, how do we feel about Max Brown?
I heard quarterback runs.
I mean, Max Brown's a true freshman.
I'll tell you what that is. That's a Jim McElwain take right there. Stand on it. Kyle Trask, baby.
Yeah, I'm hearing okay things about Max Brown.
Well,
we are in trouble.
A McElwain take.
Down.
I mean,
he wasn't like literally a McElwain take.
He was literally stolen.
Literally committed to Jim McElwain.
So I honestly, there's no way that didn't go in Billy's evaluation process. I need a guy. Oh, Mac took this kid. Okay, we'll look at him.
Bring some sunshine. I believe. I feel.
Listen, the guy signed Kyle Trask. Like Mac can say whatever he wants when it comes to quarterback takes.
Well, how do we feel about him in camp wise? I know he's a true freshman. We can't ask a lot. So what are we hearing?
I was going to say he's better than Clarabelle, I bet. Anyway. Yeah, no, I mean, I've heard good things about him. Heard good things. But he's a true freshman, man. I think again, if a Max Brown is out there, even a Jack Miller, I think it so certainly changes the offense a great deal. And I think with a Max, it's like that 60% run goes to 75 or higher. It's just hand the ball. It'll be a lot of that kind of thing. And then with a Miller, I think it's a short passing game kind of thing. You don't, Anthony's got a gun and he could throw it. I mean, he could really hit some tight windows for you in, the 25, 30 yards down the field, but Miller's not going to do that. And so I think all that changes, but Max, I think Max is a talented guy and, it's just way too early. It just is way too early. Last true freshman quarterback. I'm sorry. Maybe there has been one recently. I can't think of it.
As Billy said, there's a reason why they took
Tim Tebow was the backup, but
yeah,
right.
Chris Leak,
I know Tim, but who's that?
Maybe Chris Leak.
Yeah,
Chris
Leak started games.
Chris Leak in 03. Chris Leak beat the national champs in 03.
I worked for the team. You'd think I'd remember that, but anyway, I was
at LSU.
Yeah, Leak is it. 03. Yep.
Nice. Let's talk offensive line, which come in one of the groups that I feel good about. But let me get started with you, Zach. You've been around the team a little bit. How you feeling about the offensive line and the starting group and the guys behind them depth-wise?
They look good. Ethan White has once again improved his body. That guy's transformation just continues. And I think that their starters are pretty solidified. And obviously you add a guy in Torrance who's getting all the preseason accolades that he's got for good reason. That totally upgrades that spot. I think it helps that group, just having a guy in there that's been in that system, that's played for those coaches, that understands the assignment, as they say. So I just feel like his addition and being there all throughout the spring, I think that's really helped them. Obviously having Richard Garage out at the beginning of camp, that allowed some other guys to get some reps. I think Austin Barber is kind of that next. He's probably number 7 and might even pushing that number 6 in terms of some of their best offensive linemen. I mean, he's gotten some first team reps from what we've seen in practice. And he's a guy that we were hearing stuff about in the spring in terms of him showing good stuff. So he's kind of stood out to me. And then to have Josh Braun as, probably your 6th man who could play guard or tackle in a pinch. That's some nice depth to have there. So, and then obviously the coaching that they're getting, just a completely different setup style than obviously what they were getting with John Hevesy versus now 2 offensive line coaches, as well as additional guys with that group. That's affecting the play and also the buy-in of that group. One thing that I heard, just kind of asking how things have been, with the new staff, is there's some confidence there from the players that something like what happened at Kentucky last season will not happen again with this staff.
When was the last time you guys were like, sorry, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, there'll be an adjustment made before they get to 8 false starts or however many it was.
I mean, this has got to be the most excited that Gator fans should be for an offensive line in what, 11 years, 12 years? Right?
Yeah,
Maybe
and I didn't even
2009?
mention, Michael Tarquin, who's now starting at right tackle, taking over for DeLance. Sale raved about that guy and basically said, we talk about Torrance and Garage and Kingsley Egwilcon kind of leading that whole group at center, but they said Tarquin is like the example, the guy that all the true freshmen kind of look at and follow. He got named the Warfel Man of the Month. He's super competitive. Like they called team run alert at the end of the viewing period the other day. And so they all had to run to this assistant. And there were probably 3 or 4 linemen that were ahead of Michael, running toward the guy. And he sprinted across the field past the entire group just to get in the front of the line. That's something real small, but that's just that. If you go and read what or see what Rob Sale said about him, that's just kind of an example of how he is. So him stepping up and becoming a starter too, I think is a big deal of why that group can be better as well.
Andy, what do you hear? Your offensive line is your bag a little bit. What do you hear offensive line wise, and what do you like or dislike? Also with Rob Sale and Stapleton.
This is the most positivity I've heard out of that group.
Did you sprint in drills, Andy?
I sprinted in every drill. I thought I was gonna be kicked off the team for sucking. So
he's wrapping cables.
I do whatever lets me hang around. But yeah, this is as excited as I've heard. And I like the brain power with Sale and Stapleton and my guy Cheston Blackshear as the because Cheston Blackshear could be an FBS offensive line coach right now. He was at Dartmouth the last few years. Dartmouth had a really good offense. That's the kind of level of detail we're talking about here. You got a guy who was just on an NFL staff, a guy who coached a very good team last year in Louisiana, and by the way, it coached Osiris Torrance, and then you got Cheston who
won a Super Bowl.
Yes, exactly.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, and then you got Cheston working with those guys too. So I just think this is the best it sounds like they've felt about an offensive line. Somebody said 2009. That sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Pouncey's junior year. Like that's a high bar, but Torrance is getting a lot of buzz about being a high draft pick. And, I'm excited hearing you guys talk about Tarquin. Like, that sounds like a dude everybody's going to follow. So, and around town, it's one thing. The last few years, it is felt like, okay, if they can ever get out of their own way on that. And like, was it Zach? You mentioned Ethan White changing his body again.
Yep.
I saw him after spring. It was like, this is not even the same human being
not at all,
that came to Gainesville. Like,
Oh yeah.
right.
and I say this as someone who's lost a lot of weight recently. Like, I can't even imagine what he was trying to carry around when he got there. And he's got he looks the part.
I mean,
now.
the guy doesn't even look fat at all.
Right.
You know what I
Right,
mean?
which is how it's supposed to look now. Like, if you guys go to the combine and you see the O-line group walk in, there aren't fat dudes. There are no fat dudes anymore that go play in the NFL on the offensive line. So they look the way they're supposed to look. They've got guys coaching them that clearly know what they're doing, and they're going to be leaned on. I think they know that. I think I was thinking about most impactful transfers, and we always talk about quarterbacks and Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma. Osiris Torrance may be one of the most impactful transfers in the whole country this year.
I hope so.
I think Zach said the word was competitiveness. I think this is the most competitive group they've had. I mean, when you have Josh Braun on the second unit being as competitive as he is, and I think Austin Barber's the same way. And I think a guy we can't overlook right now is Richie Leonard. He's a backup center and the guard. When Ethan White was out last week, he slid in there, and I heard he did pretty well. So I actually really like the top 8. We also talked about the last times, that talk about positive about the offensive line was 2009. That was also the last year there were 2 offensive line coaches, I think. So
that is true.
That may be part of it. That
Bob
may be
bringing
part
the
of
juice,
it.
man. Bob bringing the
one
juice.
more name we hardly ever hear
Been around a
mentioned
long
anymore
time.
is, Yusuf McCarble. That was a 4-star guy who couldn't play at all his first year on campus, working with the second unit. I mean, that's someone who, if you have in your reserve unit to come in and fill in for you if you need, that's a better backup piece than I think a lot of teams have. Right.
It's such a different thing when a team can go from let's find 5 guys who can play that we're not terrified will just screw everything up if they're in there, to there are 7 or 8 guys who can play. If somebody goes down, we have somebody who can fill in here. It makes the offense so much more confident.
And I really think you've got 8, and you're probably looking for 2 more. And I think On Three's put him on a couple of those lists in terms of impactful transfers, but I think Osiris Torrance will be on more of those lists in the postseason. And he'd probably rather be on a postseason list than a preseason list anyway.
Go ahead, Andy. Just like Dexter. I mean, this is the first time Florida's had, besides just the top 5, the first time that we've had 8, 9 potential names for offensive line. Last year we struggled for 6.
And you're not going to have, I asked John Hevesy last year, I was like, well, how many do you want? And he was like, 40. And I'm like, all right, cool. But realistically, how many do you want? I don't think any team in the country has okay, if the left tackle goes down, we have the backup left tackle. You don't have a true 2 deep. There's going to be some shuffling, but this is an offensive line where I don't think, in the past 2-3 years at Florida, I've been like, all right, well, now we're playing Tetris. If one offensive lineman goes down, you have to move around 7 pieces to get your next offensive line. And I think Florida is at a spot right now where they're much closer to having, hey, we have a true 2 deep at all these positions, because they have some talent there. And Usef, the guy that Graham just brought up, that's someone who I hadn't even considered really, but could be creeping into that top 10.
It's too many offensive lines names to remember. It's first time in forever.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the safety room a little bit. We have some returning experience with Trey Dean and Rashard Torrance at safety. What are we hearing from them in camp? I know Rashard was out for a little bit, and I also heard Trey Dean was playing a little nickel star position. What's the word on those guys, and also the depth behind them?
Yeah,
anybody can take a shot at it. Shake up.
I think they're gonna shake some things up.
What's up? What are you hearing?
I mean,
he's liking Kamari. I bet.
I think that Torrance is going to lead that group and be the safety that plays the most. And then I think that you're going to see guys mix and match between nickel and safety, specifically Trevez Johnson and Trey Dean.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's going to present opportunities for guys like Donovan McMillan and some of the other safeties to get on the field. And one guy that I don't think is getting a lot of talk, but I've heard some very positive things about that might even get some PT at nickel is true freshman Miguel Mitchell. I'm hearing he might be one of the best freshmen that they've seen out of the crop that came in from the summer. So they got some good depth there, and I think that they're not going to just be so set on not just certain players, but also certain pairings. I think that they'll be willing to mix it up, especially Patrick Toney coaching that group.
Okay. Miguel Mitchell is a 6'1", 205 safety out of Oxford, Alabama, who came in last recruiting class. What are you hearing, Bob? You were chiming in a little bit. You hearing similar things? What is Kamari Wilson doing at safety?
Yeah.
Is he a guy that can make some moves?
Absolutely. He didn't mention Kamari, and I think he's another guy that's going to play a lot. I think the guy to watch this year back there personally is Trevez, and I think he's going to play a lot of the nickel. But he is the fastest guy on the team when it comes to the clock and the 40. I mean, and he's playing that nickel spot. We all know he hits like a truck. I think he's going to have a really big year. And I think they're going to use Trey Dean as well in different ways than we've seen of him so far. And that probably goes back to what Zach was saying, where they're going to move guys around and switch them up and stuff like that. But I like that safety room a lot. I think it's very talented. We're going to find out how good a coach Toney is, and I think he is a good coach, and we're going to see that play on the field. I think it's a good group, and I think they're going to do some pretty good things. I think that's part of the issues with the offense in this fall is because they are having a hard time against those guys. I really believe that.
And I'm going to add that Trey Dean playing nickel in Patrick Toney's defense is not going to be Trey Dean playing nickel in Todd Grantham's defense in 2019.
I'm just saying. I got to see it to believe
now,
it. Zach.
I'm not saying the results are going to be different, but I'm saying the assignments and what he's going to be asked to do and the situations that he's going to be put in will be different. And I'll be interested to see how he used and where he excels at.
I want to ask about Corey Collier. You got something real quick, Graham? Go ahead.
I was just going to re-mention Kamar Wilcoxon. I think that I get the impression that he's just too talented to keep off the field, and they're going to find some way to get him active and involved in this defense, whether it's at star, nickel, safety. I think that he's going to play this season more than I think a lot of people are expecting. Fully healthy, really good shape right now. A guy who reclassified and has been on campus, I think, a little bit longer than people even think, and I think he's going to get some shine this year.
Yeah, I like you say that name. I got some text from some practice clips of him causing some turnovers, jumping some routes, and making some things happen. So I do want to ask about Corey Collier, a guy that came in highly regarded. Also came in with Jason Marshall. What's the feedback on him and his development? Anybody?
I got nothing in the fall. I know in the spring he had a couple of good. He had one really good scrimmage. The second scrimmage he had a really good one, but I have not honestly heard much of him this fall.
Yeah, honestly, I think between him being buried on the depth chart by a bunch of upperclassmen, and then also he's still developing physically. Like he's not as skinny as he was when he first got on campus, but he's not gotten to the weight that he will be at the point where he's going to be an SEC starter. So I think a combination of those two things is probably why he's not going to see the field as fast as, but He is definitely out there. I mean, they're definitely repping him. He's working at safety primarily. I think he's got the ability to play nickel as well. But he's just behind a lot of guys right now that are just higher on the depth chart.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
If Rashad Torrance. Sorry, not to cut you off, but if
you good. I'm probably lagging or something.
He's been dealing with kind of a little nagging injury in a sense, and that's kind of led to Corey and some other guys getting a little bit more reps there in practice. If Rashad was to have anything kind of linger into the season here, absolutely, I could see him as a guy who plays a lot more than what we've heard about so far.
All right, I like it. Let's move over to a little bit. I want to get into some recruiting before we get out of here, but I do want to speak about the first game. We have Utah. Right now, they're a 2.5-point favorite. What do you guys see game one? How you see that playing out? Andy, how we match up versus Utah?
They are old. They are well coached.
Mm-hmm.
They will punch you up front. They finally happy. It feels like offensively, schematically, they were just a revolving door of offensive coordinators for years, but now it feels like they're in a good place. And Cam Rising was the difference last year. Once Cam Rising became the starting quarterback, everything started to click for them. And a lot of people, the only game they watched was the Rose Bowl, which they had some injury issues. I mean, yes, Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harris Jr. are great receivers, but they were playing against a depleted secondary. Florida's not going to get the depleted secondary. They're going to get the healthy version. So this is a team that, like, Oregon is pretty good on both lines of scrimmage, and this team kicked Oregon's ass 2 games last year up front. So this is that is their trademark. That is what they want to do. And so this will be a great test. We've talked about the offensive line. We've talked about Florida's defensive line. We will know a whole lot about them week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a lot of like positive reports out of spring and fall camp. And I've been trying to follow like some of Utah's stuff. And if you read what their writers are saying, they've got like 6 running backs. So that's really my big question.
They always have somebody like Zach Moss is probably the last really, really good one, but they've always, because they block so well, there's a lot of like kind of replacement level situation there where most guys are going to be able to run the ball behind the way they block.
That'll be the big test because the concerns that I have with Florida's defensive line is going to be in the middle, in the trenches, stopping the run. Utah will be a good test for that. It'll be interesting to see because I didn't think a ton of Cam Rising as a passer, but I think he had shoulder surgery previously and was probably still coming back from that. So that'll be interesting. You want to make a team one-dimensional. If Florida can do that and force Cam to throw the ball, I think that's where they can come away with the win. But you have to stop the run first.
Yeah, and they will. I mean, they will hit you with Tavion Thomas. He was over 5 yards a carry last year, and again, they feel deep because they feel like they can block.
Anybody else got anything on Utah? How y'all feeling? I've seen reports. I know they're trying to adjust to the weather, and they're pretty much treating their indoor facility like a sauna, turning the heat up. It's hard to mimic this humidity down here in Florida.
It is. It's been gross at practice this week. Gross.
Yeah, that ain't the same sun I grew up playing in. I'm gonna tell you all that the summer's here a little bit different now. But do you think we have an advantage? Of course, we have an advantage, stadium wise, noise wise. And we seen out that terrible 6-17 hang around with a very good Bama team last year. And I think the stadium had a lot to do with that. Do you think that can be something? And this is a top 10 matchup. I think it's a big game for Billy. If they could win this, it would be great for the program. Is there a way we could pull this out?
100%. I've done a bunch of like radio in Utah, and they're like, "Is it actually that hot? It's going to be 7:00 at night." And I'm like, "Bro, it's
you don't get it.
That doesn't matter. Like, you don't get it. 7:00 at night, it's still going to be 85% humidity and 80 degrees. There is no escaping the heat and the humidity. It's a 7:00 kickoff. There is so much excitement, and I think for good reason, around Billy Napier and around the Florida program that I would expect people to be fully drunk by 1 p.m. Like just because it's the 7 p.m. Kickoff doesn't mean the tailgate starts later. I'm really expecting like a Florida Auburn level of speaker volume of full throat yelling in the Swamp on September 3rd. And we haven't gotten many of those kind of atmospheres, many of those type of games, maybe 1 a year, 2 a year. But I think for Billy Napier's first game, for an opponent like Utah, prime time, I think you're going to get that. Like it's all the right ingredients.
And they're not used to that in the Pac-12. They don't deal with anything like that. The closest they get is Autzen Stadium in Oregon, which is loud, is really loud for 60,000 people, but it's not the same situation. Actually, they have one of the tougher home environments in the Pac-12, and it's a small stadium, but they really get after it. But it's not like what they're going to see at the Swamp with everybody excited. Now, we've seen that you can get the people at Swamp unexcited fairly quick if you take a big lead. But listen, if that crowd's into it, it will affect the game. Like it is going to be something that will feel unusual for them because it's you can tell people about what a full-on SEC environment is like, but until they actually see it for the first time, it's totally different.
And we don't know. Yeah, we don't know of how they can handle that environment. They couldn't even handle the road environment last year. So, I mean, we can give some hope for Florida fans right here. They went 10-4 last season. They were 6-0 at home, but they were 3-3 on the road. And all 3 games that they lost on the road in games that they were favored to win. I mean, they lost the second game of the season at BYU. They lost in overtime at San Diego State. I mean, they started last year, 1-2 and lost their first 2 road games and also lost at Oregon State. So those were, I mean, if you're looking for a silver lining there, I mean, those were some environments that obviously they had trouble with last year. The Swamp is going to be a completely different animal. And this team, and at the very least, its speed, which is improved from last year, is going to be something that is advantage Florida. And
that is also why they changed quarterbacks, Zach. That's why Cam Rising became the starter instead of Charlie Brewer. So
I'm excited about Florida's chances. I mean, I think that this is about as excited as Florida fans have been for a quarterback in a long time. Maybe Will Grier, before that. I don't know a quarterback recently the fans have been excited about. Recruiting's going really well. The Gators are all over the media right now with their new football practice facility. They haven't played a out-of-conference team that wasn't FSU at home or at least a traditional opponent in quite some time. I mean, I think this is the first time Florida and Utah are playing since the 70s, right? So I think that there's going to be a lot of excitement. It's a night game. It's Labor Day weekend, right? There's a lot of excitement about that entire weekend. I think a lot of people are excited about Billy Napier and about what's going to happen. So I do think the fans are going to be really into the game. I think, based on our conversation, there's a lot of question marks about Florida, but they return a ton of talent. They've got a great front 22 for the most part. And I think that Florida's got a really good chance to beat Utah. I think Utah's going to be good. I think that Utah could very easily, beat Florida. I think that Utah could be your Pac-12 champions, but I don't think, Florida's by any stretch of the imagination out of this game. And I would not be surprised if Florida wins, and I would not be surprised if Florida win the game relatively handedly too.
Man, shout out to Chris in the comments. A regular point that we've made on Stadium Miguel. We just have an advantage with no film. They have no idea what offense they can look at previous film and tendencies of Billy Napier in that offense, Louisiana. But the athletes are different. The quarterback position, like you said, is a different type of animal at quarterback. So I think we have an advantage in that, and the home field advantage and everything that comes with that. So I like our chance with them traveling to the Swamp. I just don't know because we don't have a whole lot to go off as fans ourselves or analyzing the game. It's nothing for us to really base it off of. Utah ended the season or put a good product on the field, and they return a lot of starters, and that's pretty much the recipe for a good team in a good season.
Yeah, I want to laugh a little bit about the Heat. when I started school at Florida, and I'm going to do my old guy routine here, but 1985, right? So Florida was on probation for 3 years. So every single game in the Swamp was at 1 p.m.
Oh,
yeah. And it was a fake turf. It was AstroTurf.
Oh, that's right. It was real AstroTurf, which
Doug's
is like
rug
concrete.
And I was actually in the marching band, and my feet literally were burned from just marching at halftime. So these
you play flute, Bob?
Yeah, no. I play what you thought I would play. I was a sousaphone tuba player, but anyway, either way, I mean, I just thought I'd bring that up because I mean it was brutal. I mean, talking brutal. Every single weekend was 1 p.m. because we couldn't be on television, so it was wild.
That's crazy. Let's get a prediction for the season, guys. Give me your I mean, we can go. You got to include this game a little bit. So let me know. Let me get your outlook on the season. We'll start with Nick. Let's get the negative stuff out of the way first.
2-10.
No. I've said 7-5, 8-4. I think I'll probably lean more towards 8-4 right now, with losses to Utah, A&M, Georgia, and then one of those games that Florida just seems to find a way to lose. You know, like a Kentucky last year, one of those games. But I think 8-4. It's more important that how you look against a Georgia, how you look against a Texas A&M, how you look against Utah than what the actual final score is. I think 8-4, go to a decent bowl game and get a win. And the way that Florida's recruiting sets you up for next year and sets Billy Napier up moving forward.
Yeah, if they go 8-4, in my mind, that's an A+. Absolutely. I'm with Nick. I think that Florida loses to Utah. I'm not willing to say right now that game against South Carolina is a guaranteed victory. I mean, that was 40-17 last year. And then you mentioned it.
That wasn't. Come on, did you see that?
That's a wild take.
South
Carolina.
Graham, don't do that, man. That was a wild
I'm just not
game.
willing to say that right now. That's an automatic win for Florida.
We were handing South Carolina's quarterback the Heisman this time last year. Let's not forget this.
And Emory Jones
was hold on to Graham.
He wasn't playing for South Carolina yet.
There are other people that feel like that might be a 50-50 game.
Yeah, no, I feel it 50-50, but bringing up the score of last year's game is egregious.
I'm just saying
that was a special circumstance that
sure.
Scream special circumstances.
They had a former 5-star quarterback. I just can't sit here and say right away that Florida is going to automatically win that game because that's what tradition has been. When they get handed a 23-point loss, I just can't turn around and be that guy who says, well, you know, new coach, they're going to beat them.
There's no more of those wins in the SEC, though. There's no easy wins in the SEC no more. The days of you got to come to play versus Vanderbilt, Kentucky, everybody now. So I think every week we show up, it's going to be. Correct. Yeah, we got to show up to play football. Nobody's just going to give us wins because we the Gators. That's a fact.
And then going with Texas A&M, I mean, I could see 5 losses easily. That's all I'm saying. I'm going with 7-4.
It's a gauntlet. It's a gauntlet.
There's some 50-50 games where, like I said, if Richardson turns out to be special, there's a scenario where there's a 9-3 season. I don't know that it's that likely. I think 8-4 sounds more likely in that situation, but there's a scenario where they win some 50. I think they split the first two. I think they win one of those. It's the toughest opening 2 games for any team in the country this season. I think a split under these circumstances would be pretty good. I think they can do it.
With the brand new staff too.
Y'all want me to go? You already know.
I got us 9-3.
There you go. Dan.
I'm kind of with Graham. I think that because of Richardson and because of Ventrell Miller, I think that they can win 8 games and go 8-4. But I think that a combination of if injuries hit and their schedule, you know, part of me feels like, you know, 5 losses is almost more likely than 4. But if they get to, I don't expect them to go 9-3. So, like,
well, I mean, I don't know.
I don't think anybody expects them to go 9-3.
I think that they can. I mean, we're talking a lot of injury bug going just one way.
I don't even see, like you said, the scenario. Like I think it would take a.
They'd have to win at Tennessee.
I would be very.
They'd have to beat South Carolina.
If Billy Napier pulled that off. I'll just say that.
Yeah. They'd have to win at Tennessee. They'd have to beat South Carolina. They'd have to split the first two. I mean, yeah, that is an ideal scenario if you're talking 9-3. But 8-4 is doable if Richardson is as good as it seems like. You know, those of us.
I just think they won
he is
6 games last year, and I think Ventrell Miller healthy and Anthony Richardson healthy. I'm talking about healthy all 12 games.
Right.
They won 6 games last year. I think they win 8 games this year. But
that makes perfect sense. And like we were talking about with the South Carolina game last year, there's some special circumstances last year.
Sure.
Different
and,
deal.
I mean, and as we're talking, Ventrell Miller's in a non-contact jersey. So
very good.
Keep him healthy and upright, man. Need that 6-year senior.
He doesn't need to practice. He's
been there a decade. Yeah.
I'll go 9-3. I'll go 9-3.
Oh, Bob going out on that limb.
I'm the homer here. Well, whatever. That's cool. Look, I look at it as a full team thing, right? I think if Anthony stays healthy, you're better at quarterback. I think you're they didn't play Damian Pierce enough, so you're pretty much even at running back because they didn't play him, right? He played 7 or 8 snaps a game. You're better on the offensive line. You're at least even at receiver, and if Pearsall really takes a jump, that certainly it probably makes you a better receiver group. I think on the defensive line, 3 of the 4 positions is going to be better. I think linebacker with Ventrell Miller is going to be better, and I already talked about the safety.
Talk, Bob.
I already talked about the safety position being a whole lot better. So if you're talking about a team-wise, this is a whole different team with a lot better players at almost every position. And so
Bob talking me into this.
I mean,
they were 6 and 7 last year. Yeah. We're only talking 2 or 3 games difference from being 8 or 9 win team.
And last year was a situation where, I mean,
the team gave up.
They fired the coach like that. Right. That's a loss or 2 right there. Just that that happening is a loss or 2. Right. So, I think
I just only see one game that I'm absolutely putting a Sharpie L next to, and that's Georgia. I just think that they're a little bit more talented than us. Everything else, like I've got reason to believe that, like, depending on the situation of how Florida looks, depending on injuries, like we're spreading the injury bug of, what happens to Florida, if Anthony Richardson goes down or, there's some changes in the defensive backfield. I mean, I think the opposite can go true, right? I mean, I just don't think that there's any other team besides Georgia that's immensely more talented than Florida.
A&M gets the quarterback situation right. That may not be a place you can go into and win.
Right, maybe.
But if they don't, and it's not something they've been able to do consistently over the last few years, if they don't, then that's probably a game that either team can win.
That's still Carolina, the week after Georgia. You have to go to College Station the week after Georgia.
Why why College Station ain't coming out here? That's a question I do have. We keep going out there.
Why is Georgia going out to College Station?
Well,
Georgia's never been.
2020 schedule where they had the random draw.
3 times, bro. Like they need to come out here and visit and feel.
Oh, they came. You're just forgetting it because of the uniforms that Florida wore.
Yeah. They lost.
Never mind that. I'm very high on Anthony Richardson, man. I think he's next level talent. I don't think there's it's maybe in my mind, and I may be on some homer stuff like Bob. Me and Bob connect on the homer level. But I think there's maybe 1 or 2 quarterbacks in the country that's better than AR, potential wise and what he could bring. The team that, and not to keep comparing him to Cam Newton, but Cam Newton took a really bad Auburn team to the national championship. That none of those guys went to go play in the NFL. I think.
I got a trivia stat for you, Silk. If you want that, how many of the other starters on the offense that Cam Newton played on in 2010 combined? How many NFL starts?
0.
One. Yeah, 1 player started. Now Philip Letzenkirchen would have played a long time in the NFL. He died in a car accident the season before his rookie year, or the offseason before his rookie year. But that was not an immensely talented offense. It wasn't a great offensive line. It wasn't a great receiver group. It wasn't.
He elevated the play of a lot of guys.
It was Cam and Lutzy and Nick Fairley.
And here's the thing. Like, I think when these guys like Cam Newton, AR, when they break the pocket, even if the receivers are not that great, that creates opportunities for those receivers to find open field. You ain't got to run the best routes when these guys break the pocket and they're scrambling. That's a different situation. I just think I'm very high on Anthony Richardson. So I got us at 9 wins just because I think he's going to elevate the player to receive. As long as he's healthy. If we got a healthy AR for all these games, I think 3 teams could knock us off. Other than that, man, I feel real good about Ventrell Miller and that leadership. We're good. We got good leadership down the middle. Gervon, you got Ventrell Miller, and then you got Rashard Torrance and Trey Dean. All of that's veteran leadership right down the middle. A new coaching staff on the defensive side. We're going to be attacking and not being passive. Getting these defensive backs to be able to reshift and jam guys at the line of scrimmage and not playing 6 yards off the ball. It's just going to be a totally different Gator team. And traditionally, when we get new coaches, like we have this same energy, 7, 8 wins, and we go out and win 10 wins. It doesn't matter which new coach we got. In the previous years was 4 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins, but somehow the new guy comes in, which is like, whoa, we got talent. Because 9 times out of 10, when guys are getting fired, I mean, they kind of quit. The coach quit, the players. It's toxic. So I just feel good about the whole situation. Breath of fresh air, and AR Richardson. I think we get 9 wins. That's where I'm at with it. I can't point out.
I think for Florida to get 9 wins, they got to make it through the first month of the season 3-1.
Facts. I got us winning game 1. We got to win game 1. I think that sets the tone. You know,
I mean, they don't have to win game 1, but they got to get that. You know, they cannot come out of that first 4 weeks 2-2. If they're at 2-2 at that point, which isn't bad, but I just think if you're 2-2 at that point to try to get to 9, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough to only have one more loss the rest of the way.
For sure.
See, but I'm not bought in on Tennessee. Like, I think Florida goes up to Knoxville and wins. I'd be interested to see what Andy thinks about that. But
50-50 game.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah, I don't know if Tennessee
I'm not sold on.
I don't know if Tennessee can stop anyone. I know Tennessee can score. Like that, I am not worried about Tennessee scoring points.
And I think that goes back to what I was saying before.
That's Florida's first road game with a new staff.
Yeah. So. If Tennessee goes to Pittsburgh and wins, and they're undefeated going into that game, Knoxville, the roof is going to blow off the town on Friday night. Like that is going to be the most excited they've been for a football game in a long time.
Well, they were really excited when Will Muschamp and Treon Harris went in there and got a win.
They're also real excited when Butch Jones finally broke the streak, but then they beat Georgia and lost to South Carolina and Vandy. So those fans have been kicked in the teeth over and over again. So they're ready. Like, watch that. Right. If they beat Pitt, just watch out. That place is gonna be insane.
I will say one thing from talking to Anthony and talking to some doctors though about his health, because like hamstrings, obviously, it's an injury that can like linger. There was a thought that his meniscus had been banged up since high school. And some of those other injuries are probably just your body subconsciously trying to make up for an injury that it knows it has. And I don't know if, we'll still see that those lingering injuries, those nagging injuries for him, which I think we've all kind of talked about is his health is paramount for this team.
No doubt. Before we get out of here, I want to talk some recruiting. We're not going to get deep into it because we talk recruiting every week on Stadium McGill and everybody else's platform, 247 on 3. But real quick before we get into recruiting, shout out to Bill Smoke.
I got a balance.
Go?
It is
all right, Andy.
fun, but I will let the experts handle recruiting. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Have a good one, man. Let's talk a little recruiting, man. Shout out to my man Bill Smoke, attorney Bill Smoke, friend of the Rollup Network and also Gator alum. Just giving us some love. Quick little shout out. Where we at with it, fellas? Recruiting. We're 4 months away. As of today, we're a top 10 recruiting class. We're going to go with On 3 and 247. Either one. We got both being represented here. We're top 10. 89% blue chip ratio. Are we doing enough to catch up and close the gap with Bama and Georgia?
Hell yeah.
We top 10 now. We getting in some battles. We beat Shelby, beat them for Shelby Collins. We got some more on the horizon. You think we get top 5 class? That's closing the gap. 10 ain't closing the gap.
Listen, no, 10's not closing the gap, but where they're at and the surprises that they've got. Like, they got surprises in the last cycle with Shamar James and Kamari Wilson, and they've already had multiple surprises in this cycle, and still haven't had any games yet. So to me, like, I still think that there's some potential flips out there. I think there's some potential guys like Kelby Collins who maybe you looked at in the summer or looked at for most of the cycle and thought, nah, it's not a kid Florida's going to land. And then they actually land them. Like, I think there might be 2 or 3 more of those kids, along with the guy like Cormani McLean and some of their other top in-state targets that push this class. If it's not top 5, they're going to be in the 6 to 8 range for sure. But hey, man, I don't think that they're done building momentum and showing their recruiting prowess on the trail.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I'm with Zach. Absolutely. I think that the big questions for me are more so about what happens in the first real year of the NIL era when we see the on-field results. Will we see the amount of flips? Will we see decommits happen at the rate that they've happened in the past? Or are classes more solidified right now in the NIL era? That's a huge question mark for me. If Florida goes, like some of you guys say, 9-3, then absolutely 6 to 8 range, I think, is extremely possible. But if we're talking maybe a 6-6 season, 7-5, I could see them potentially miss out on some of these top in-state targets that they're after, and could see some guys that they're going to need to keep recruiting. Kelby Collins is one especially. They're going to need to keep recruiting him the entire cycle, because you know that what you said earlier, Alabama and Georgia are going to keep coming after him as well. So they're going to have to absolutely keep recruiting these guys, and the on-field results, in my mind, I'm still not convinced that you won't see some decommitments if things don't really go the way in some of these 50-50 games like Florida's hoping that they do. I know it's kind of a doom and gloom type, but
Florida's got to beat LSU in the swamp. They got to beat LSU in the swamp.
Absolutely. I mean,
I don't think we'll ever take that game lightly. Just to speak about the LSU game, with Billy being from Louisiana and the relationship he got with that state and that school, I think he kind of low-key wanted that job a little bit. I don't think we'll ever sleepwalk into that game and bench people like Kyle Pitts.
Sure.
And I just think,
wild.
I just think, to Graham's point, like, they're not going to have, they're going to need to capitalize on opportunities to impress kids this season, and having a big visit weekend for that and being able to win that game. I think that's key for them, especially if they can't get it done against Kentucky or Utah.
Right now, that's the only game, to Silk's point. Right now, that's the only game that they are going to have official visitors for, that LSU home game. They want to have officials on weekends that in the off season where they can actually spend time and kick it with kids, show them around on a game day. Yes, you get that game day experience, but you're not spending time with your coach. You're not getting a ton of face time with the head coach until late at night. I think this staff is put a premium, and everyone says it, but that has put a premium on that 500-mile radius, that 6-hour circle around Gainesville. And other staffs have had it before. And listen, I know there was a lot of people that were mad. The first signing class is like, all these dudes are from out of state. Where are all the Florida guys? And they were just working with what they knew, and they weren't recruiting kids from Florida. If you look at it now, they're getting kids from Lakeland. They're getting kids from Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. They're going to put a premium on the state. You're not going to get every guy. You're not going to – Nick Saban's going to come in. He's going to get his. Dabo's going to get some kids, go to Clemson. But Florida is going to recruit the state, make it a priority, get guys that they really want to stay home. And I think that is a recipe for success in the future, because there's too many dudes in the state of Florida to not have the flagship program be top 10, top 15 every year.
I do like that. If you get caught up in rankings, I mean, you could easily make a case for why a class like LSU's is not built. That strategy is not built for the long term, because you look at, 11 states that are making up that class right now. They're clearly relying on past connections, the areas that Brian Kelly was recruiting in. Not establishing a footprint in the state of Louisiana is going to come back to bite them. Not this year, perhaps, and the fans can, love it for right now. But going into year 2 of Brian Kelly, there's going to be, I think, a lot more issues on the recruiting trail than what Florida's current coaching staff is going to deal with.
I think it's a good thing too that a lot of these players seem to be creating a bond and friendship. When you get those out-of-state kids, they're not playing 7-on-7 together. They're not playing against each other in high school. They don't see each other along the camping trail like that. It's a little bit different than when you got a bunch of guys. Trey Young Webb is one of those guys that they're getting this glue, and you're getting Aiden Mazzell, and they're all starting to recruit together. They're in group chats and building this class up. So they kind of buy into the vision and what it can be, and they got that state pride. So trying to build it around that, you get some hopes. But some of those guys at Bama after are Bama guys. They're not Florida guys. So we just wait and see on that situation. But it's a good start to the recruiting. Have we figured out shout out to the Gator Collective. They sponsored this, one of our sponsors for this episode of the review show. Do you think we figured out the NIL situation? I like that. A situation where, because NIL could get tricky with the energy in the locker room. If guys in the recruiting process, they're getting all these crazy dollars that have been announced. So I do like that. I like when players on campus are being taken care of, and you can use that as a recruiting tactic or tool. That, hey, we take care of the guys that are on campus. Look at how we're taking care of Anthony Richardson. Look how we're taking care of Gervon Dexter. What do you guys think about our NIL approach? It seems like we got our some good tracking here.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Florida's, I think a lot got put under a microscope with that Jaden Rashada recruitment. And I just think outside of that, you look at how Florida's been in the NIL space from the get-go with literally coining the phrase collective with the Gator Collective. And then, being one of the, I think, first programs to get and speak about the fact that they were prioritizing signing their current athletes to deals and getting them taken care of before offering these ridiculous under-the-table deals to recruits, which, according to NCAA rules, you still can't technically do. So in Napier's mind, hey, if we're taking care of the starting quarterback and our starters and even guys down to the freshmen, all those recruits have to do is come on our visit and talk to these guys. They're going to figure out that they're signing deals. They're going to figure out that they're taken care of. Some might even share what they're making. But that right there is just going to send a message that if you come to Florida, you're going to be taken care of with an NIL deal. So I think that's put I think this program, and like more specifically like you were talking about, the locker room, just having that be a healthy situation where there's not jealousy, there's not resentment toward recruits that are coming in, because guys in the locker room are already taken care of. So they're not feeling any type of way about a guy that's coming in, regardless of what his status was coming out of high school. So I just think Florida's in a good space. Obviously, Hugh Hathcock and the Gator Guard is a big reason why. Between them and the Gator Collective working hand in hand, Florida's sitting pretty. On3 has consistently ranked Florida's collectives among the top 5 in terms of the most aggressive and ambitious collectives in the country, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon. And if anything, you're starting to see some schools start to point the finger at Florida. So
that's wild. You're starting to see that. The narrative has changed from like, haha, Florida's poor, look at the Gator Collective begging for money, and now it's kind of like someone put up from the Alabama board. It's like, Kelby got a 6-figure offer from Florida. It's like, oh, so now Florida has money. Like when they weren't landing recruits, they were poor, but now they're getting some guys, and it must be these 6-figure deals. Like I think Florida, with Jen, with Eddie, with the Gator Collective, I think they got the ball rolling. I think the Gator Guard has been a nice ATM for the Gator Collective. But the biggest thing for Florida is that they're taking care of the guys in the locker room, and the numbers that we see getting thrown out, like, hey, the guy that's committed to USC, I saw today, he's getting offered $15 million to go to Texas A&M. I'm like, that's ridiculous. No, he's not. Like, those numbers aren't being thrown around.
You're a hater, Nick.
Really, those numbers aren't being thrown around. Really, like, hey, bro, if he's getting 15, listen, I'll go to UTSA for $15 million. I'll be their backup punter next week. But I think in the reality is that Florida is taking care of their players. And it's kind of like what you said when recruits come in. Hey, look, this guy's player A, B, C, D, E. They're all getting taken care of. And once you're here at Florida, you'll be taken care of as well.
How many commits do you think we end up with in this? Sorry, Graham, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I know there's no number on this, but what number you think we end up at about?
I'd probably say 26 right now.
Okay.
I think about 26.
A very specific number. Like Graham's got names. That he's back.
This is the exact number. I was thinking around like 30 or something crazy. They look like they're gonna take a lot of defensive linemen. And I don't see them putting an end to that. So I was thinking maybe around like the 30 number, and I think numbers is gonna matter too, because I think a lot of people are gonna oversign and try to figure out that 85 fall camp next year. What do you think, Zach?
I think closer to 30. I don't think attrition's done yet. I think it'll be after the season, but you're just naturally going to have some guys that move on after year one, and might even have some that get processed. So between that and there being no cap, like I think Florida is going to have the scholarship space to do that. And even if they end up signing one or two over at the time, between that point and all going through all of spring and then getting to the summer, they might have time to get down 2 or 3 more spots so that they can bring in all their signees. They don't have to be at 85 until fall training camp starts in 2023. So, I definitely don't think it won't be under 25. I'll tell you that.
No doubt. Real quick before we get out of here, any chance? I know we got some possible commitments of Dijon Johnson and a few others that are in the wings. Any chance Cormani McClain pops before the season?
I think there's a chance. So. I think there's a chance, but it's not a big thing. It's not a big chance.
I think that's a December decision.
You think it's December? I don't think it's going to be December.
Honestly, I don't know if you want him to commit. Because his recruitment is not going to be over until he signs. So
until he's getting fitted for a helmet.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that if you wouldn't completely rule it out because maybe he will get sick of it, and if he knows where he wants to go, but I think that he probably wants to take this process out. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I don't think that's anything that should be a concern for Florida. That's just how he's playing it.
No doubt. Nick, before we leave, or Graham, how many commits do we get? Got the last question. This is the last one we're gonna ask. How many commits do we get before games kick off, if any more?
Pass to Graham because Graham had a very specific number.
He's a number guy.
Yeah, Graham.
I'll say one more.
One more. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go two. I'm going 2 just so I'm more positive than Graham tonight.
Yeah, Price is right. I mean,
shout out to that.
You mentioned Dijon Johnson. I mean, I think that's one where if you're Florida, you want these guys to commit before the season, knowing that in that first month you do face the potential of starting 1-3. And as Zach kind of alluded to, I think there is some belief, concern, whatever you want to call it, that if Florida comes out here and the product is not as far along as I think a lot of people are hoping for, that maybe there are some of these kids, 5 stars, who are a little bit more hesitant to buy in to this program right now. I think that's a realistic possibility. It's a realistic concern. The reason I talked about the NIL possibly preventing that is I do think that also is a side where you see NIL kind of assuage some of these fears of guys hopping out. So with all that said, I mean, if you're Florida, I think you want to get some guys to commit here in the next 3 weeks before really you start the season, just knowing what could happen.
I think something's going to shake.
Man, it's some vibes, man. I'm hearing some stuff behind the scenes. I don't want to get, I want these kids and everybody to have their moments, man. But there's some kids, some of this stuff never materializes as well. A lot of smoke sometimes just goes away.
Yeah, but it's been materializing with this staff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And,
I've been in my bag.
And as I wrote in my mailbag one week, Where there's smoke, there's fire, and we're not talking relationship ribs.
No, these ain't the ribs this time, bro. It's where there's smoke, there's cush in my lane, Zach. Let's wrap this up, man. I appreciate you boys for hanging out with us, man. It's been like, I think we didn't do it during the pandemic. Got it crunked back up. Good vibes, man. Shout out to the Gator Collective. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I apologize for being late, man. I thought we were starting at 7:30 off that tweet. So my apologies. I know you guys held it down, though.
Oh, man, I probably crunked it up too early. I was anxious, man. My bad.
No, you're good. You're good.
All good. Shout out to the Gator Collective. Shout out to Alan Horn and State Farm. And also shout out to my man, Bill Smoke. Shout out to the Rollup Network, Nick Delatorre, Graham Hall, Zach Abervert, and everybody else that had to leave a little bit early, man. We appreciate y'all for hanging out with us. We appreciate the super chats. Everybody, like before y'all get out of here. Subscribe, all of that. Show us love to the whole network. We dropping the Andre DeBose Sanford 3 interview tomorrow, which is gas, man. Some dope conversations. My man Andre DeBose is hilarious, man. He got into some Charlie White stories, some Muschamp stories, Urban Meyer. He went down. He was there 6 years, so he went down the list, man, of just hilarious stuff, man. Y'all be sure to check us out. Subscribe to all the content, man. It's the Rollup Network. We out.